You have to remember that you are great. You are someone capable of moving mountains. But, sometimes we get beat down by the circumstances and we've forgotten how powerful we actually are.
Someone cares about you.
There's a reason why your heart is beating.
You still have a purpose.
Don't give up.
It's important to know that you're not alone.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
You are not alone.
Today's guest is Ahmad Burse, a retired U.S. Army veteran with 23 years of service. He now works as a corporate coach for veterans by offering valuable guidance on career planning, leadership development, and overcoming challenges and transitioning to the civilian workforce. Ahmad, welcome to the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast.
Thank you. And I just want to say I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure chatting with you and getting to know you. One of the things that really stood out to me was your 23 years of service in the Army. What inspired you to join in the first place?
My mother and father were both in the Army. My mom specifically was a WAC. And what a WAC is a woman's Army Corps. And during the time she joined, the Army was, a lot of them were segregated. You had the WAIFs, which was the Women's Air Force Corps, and the WANs, the Women's Navy. But in any instance, the Army segregated the males from the female, and females could only have jobs specifically towards the medical fields and such. So then, seeing my mother and seeing my parents, who were both in the military, it just made me want to join. It was like the natural course of action. And I wanted to serve my country. I think one of the things that was really spoken to me was, hey, you need to serve your country. You have to give back. So then when you grow up in an environment like that, that's what you do.
That's awesome. I know, coming from a military family myself, we get ideas of what the service was like. I came from a Navy family. I had all the Navy stories, ended up joining the Navy. And when I joined, the job that I was doing wasn't necessarily one that I was prepared for. And so I found another job in the Navy, and that was awesome. What was your first impression when you joined the Army?
In preparing to join the Army, I watched movies like, what was the name of that movie? I joined in 1989. So I watched Platoon, and there was another war movie. It was with the Marines, Full Metal Jacket. And so in watching those, I was preparing myself to join the military. And so then once I got the basic training, I was kind of like that happy-go-lucky mode. And I will tell you what kind of shook me. When I was in basic training, I'm running around. Oh, hey, how you doing, drill sergeant? Hey, how's it going? And there was a particular drill sergeant there, and he was actually on Hamburger Hill. So the Hamburger Hill is a war movie. So then in any instance, it's about the 101st, either the 101st or the 82nd, and they're ordered to defend this hill. It's a bloody, gory movie. But anyway, he was on Hamburger Hill. And whenever he came around, all the other drill sergeants left because, he was still dealing with some things. So then, me being me, I walk up to him. Good morning, drill sergeant. He said, get the F out of my face. That's what he said to me. I'm a grown man. And I apologized for the language, and I just kind of looked at him. Yes, drill sergeant. And it kind of shook me that, hey, this is for real. As much as I'm playing, I think I'm having fun. You're in the Army to do a real job. And I think after that, I kind of realized, hey, this isn't a game. And it didn't take away from it, but it kind of shook me like, oh, wow, he said that to me. So, yeah, that was like my first experience in the Army.
That's a great first impression. And then you went on to serve in like 3 or 4 different areas of combat from 89 to 2012. How did your 23 years influence and shape who you are today?
I would say it humbled me for a lot of things. And I was 19 when I went to Desert Storm. So we go to Desert Storm, we do what we do, and we come back. I was at Fort Lewis, Washington. And from Fort Lewis, McCord is right there, and that's where we flew into. When we got off the plane, there was a band. We had a police escort from Fort Lewis, or from McCord Air Force Base to Fort Lewis to go home. It was like a little parade welcoming us back. And I just felt, I realized that the Vietnam veterans didn't get any of this, and it just kind of, so every time I deployed, it just humbled me. It's like you see people doing things that you question, could I do that? Whether it's bravery, whether it's caring about someone else, and then you see some of the blessings of life, and you see people who are really in poverty, and I've seen a lot of good, I've seen a lot of bad, but the thing about it is, like I said, it just makes me realize, hey, I'm a human being. Be grateful for what you have. Be thankful. So that's why I say it. Those deployments, they humbled me.
And those deployments, those years of service, led you to finally retire as a sergeant first class. And I know as I was coming up in the leadership, one of the things that I ended up learning was that our positions aren't necessarily for ourselves. It's so that we can pass on information to the next person, so that we can make sure the next person that's getting ready for war is prepared to come home. And so for yourself, like, what adjustments did you end up experiencing? How did you end up transitioning back into the civilian workforce when you were the guy that was helping people with their transitions?
One of the last jobs I had, I was working with wounded and ill soldiers. I was at a warrior transition battalion, and our role there, we were part of the caregivers. That's exactly what we did. We were part of the caregiver team. So we talked to the doctors, we talked to the nurses, we talked to psychiatrists, psychologists, because we were supporting that soldier in their transition. We talked to their families. So then I learned a lot being around that group of folks, like how to transition out. These are some, because we were helping them with resumes, interview skills. We were just doing a whole lot so that when they transitioned, those that had to transition had a better opportunity. And so I took a lot of the skills that I learned there and I applied them to my own transition. But I tell anyone, if you're leaving the military, I would take it, if you can, take at least 90 days, because it took me, I had about a month of leave, because a lot of times people just want to jump in and work, but you need time to figure out who you are. The person that you were when you joined the military is not the person that you're not the same person when you leave. And it's not a negative, but it's just, you need to realize that you're not that person.
Yeah, I know when I was getting out, I had a lot of mentors speaking into me and into my life, reminding me of the things that I enjoyed doing outside of the military. I didn't have an option to stay in because of my medical disposition at the time. And so making that adjustment, that transition period, was so crucial. And I was grateful for the amount of time that I had to prepare for that. But a lot of people, especially young people, are thinking, 2-3 weeks, I've got this awesome military background, I'll get a job, no problem. What was that experience like for you to identify what you want to do and then start to realize that was going to be happening?
Well, I thought I had prepared enough so that I would be marketable. However, life happens. I've met a lot of folks that have been able to, leave the military on Monday and start working on Wednesday. That wasn't my tale. That wasn't my role. That wasn't how things were supposed to happen. I had to dig a little harder. I had to fight a little bit more. I had to look at the skills that I had. I guess the thing about it is I could have taken more time to kind of be a little bit more diligent looking for what I wanted, but that's not my story. The story that I have is the story that I have. And I think that's what's important for people to get. This is your transition. This is your life. And you can't compare your life to someone else, because I've met a lot of folks that have left the military and been able to pick up work, but they're just still in the military. And that's an important thing too. Part of transition is letting go. The stages of group development, the final stage is adjourn, and adjourning is the death. That portion of you, it no longer exists, and you have to transition to a new one. And you have to, keep your eyes open, aware of all the possibilities that are available.
That's a really good point to make. Now, you had mentioned something about you didn't make yourself marketable enough, but from what I understood, 23 years of service, great record. You also had a master's degree. So what do you mean you didn't make yourself marketable enough, and how would somebody go about making themselves marketable for a career after the military?
As the saying goes, if you're talking and no one's listening, if you're trying to be a leader and, you got to keep telling folks you're a leader, then there's something wrong there because I ran into people like that. I'm in charge. I could have done a better job at creating networks as opposed to worried about, what skill sets I have. Because one of the things I found out, as these years have gone by is it really isn't what you know, it's who you know. And sometimes you have to identify those groups. One of the things I talk about to veterans, what groups are you a member of? And it all counts. Who are you following on Instagram? Who are you following on Facebook? Who are you connecting with on LinkedIn? Because although a lot of those, for a lot of times, people will follow the funny people. If you're trying to get employment, or if you're trying to get into an industry, who are you following? So there's a lot of things that I could have done, and lots of other opportunities that are available. I could have went into, but like I said, it's my story, and I like my story. It's not someone else's, and there was challenges with it, but it can't be any worse than some of the hardest days in the military. So.
Absolutely. Now, you had mentioned about the different types of groups that veterans can be a part of in order to make themselves more marketable in the networking. I know for myself, I was incredibly grateful when I discovered Voc Rehab and that I had qualified for it because they were able to, I had gone back to school, got my undergraduate degree in a field that I had no idea how to market it. And the school that I went to was relatively small, and they geared their students towards a specific job that I wasn't interested in. And so when I discovered Voc Rehab and still had some of my benefits available, they helped me find my first job, and it was federal government. But I know that there's also a lot of organizations out there that help veterans find that job. So what was one of the resources that you came across that helped you kind of start navigating that civilian sector?
I will definitely say Hire Heroes USA. What Hire Heroes did for me was, number one, it showed me how to draft a resume, and it showed me how to look at the position posting and then change my resume to meet the requirements. Because a lot of times I think for me as a soldier, I had one resume and was just sending it out and wasn't getting any hits. But there are a lot of major organizations, major companies, whether it's Walmart, whether it's Google, whether it's Apple, that have they're called employee resource groups or business resource groups, and a lot of them have veterans organizations inside of them. And you can try and find them on LinkedIn, but they have them, and those organizations are a place to look at. Reach out to their veterans organization inside of that agency, and then talk to them. Maybe you can get you a mentor. Maybe you can find someone that can help you get into that organization. So there's a lot of options. And I think the thing we do sometimes is, I wasn't a good networker. I'm not saying I am. However, I know how to talk to people. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? How's your day going? Oh, you do this? Oh, well, this is what I do. And that's a big part of it.
Absolutely. One of the things that I've always noticed when searching for different types of employments and being a freelancer ourselves is we're always looking for the next job that we can do for others. And one of the things that I've noticed about writing resumes is that people want to see what value you're going to bring, not necessarily what you've done. Like, what you've done is really important, but what are you going to bring to the company? And that's a way to stand out, because we're no longer there to take from our employer. We're there to contribute and to be a part of their community, just like we were in the military. For yourself, I know that you continue to be of service. You're trying to find ways to continue to give back, especially for the gifts that you've received as you've worked your way up the corporate ladder, especially within federal government, getting these various leadership positions. So what led you to finally specialize in providing guidance for career planning and managing different career paths?
I think I felt that I could do it, number one, and I also felt that I could have that conversation with other veterans. I think one of the big deals is having a safe space to have a conversation, and I don't think veterans really feel, even though they're part of that corporation, they don't really feel that. So if they can speak to someone and they can speak freely and have those conversations and also get advice and guidance on how to continue to move and how to navigate through those the corporate arena, then I think that that's kind of the things that kind of guided me, because it's like, hey, I feel like I can connect with people on a level and I can provide assistance to them and help them to get to where they'd like to go.
That's awesome. Well, what do you believe are some of the biggest challenges that individuals face when navigating their various career transitions? And then how do you go about assisting them overcome some of their challenges?
I would say a big challenge is identity. For me, for instance, whenever I left the military, I think the crescendo moment, or the thing that tells me I'm leaving, is when I turn my phone in. So my government phone, and the government phone it's a leash, but it keeps you in the know. And whenever you turn the phone in, that means it's not going to ring anymore, and that means you're no longer part of this thing that you've been a part of for decades. So then, I think a lot of people have problems remembering who they were. It's like, hey, I've been a sailor this long, I've been a soldier this long. That's the only thing I know. And you got to shift out of that. You're no longer that person. That's not a bad thing. But this new person, or not this new person, you kind of got to remember, who are you? What do you like? As the saying goes, if the only skill you have is with a hammer, then everything's a nail. And everything isn't a nail. So you have to learn how to kind of navigate that. What I also say is the culture. Coming from the one of the things that I think allows military people to connect very easily is because we're coming from a structured culture, a culture of, hey, a lot of I lead this way. I'm going to get it done. A lot of that is in there, but that may not be what's the culture that you're a part of, and in doing so may alienate you, it may ostracize you, and you may have all these skills and all of these things that can really help that organization grow, but maybe the way you're presenting yourself and presenting the information, you're kind of shutting down doors. So that's another conversation. I had put up a posting on LinkedIn, and it was the 3 people you need to have around you as a veteran. And number 1 is like a coach or a mentor. You need to have someone who's telling you what to do. Number 2 is a therapist or counselor. And I think all veterans, you need to have a therapist or counselor. You need to have someone that you can talk to. Maybe I'm speaking for self, but it's about time that we're saying that it's okay to have someone else on the outside that's not our spouse. Sometimes what you need to talk about, you just may need someone else to speak to. So the number 2 person is that therapist or counselor, and the third person is just another veteran, someone you can bounce some things off of. So I think that whole, when you're asking what are some of the things that veterans need, or whether they navigate that corporate arena, is they need to have a squad with them, and they need to realize that they're not alone.
That support system is absolutely integral when working through things. I think one of the biggest cultural shocks that I've experienced in my life, and if you grew up as a military child or moving around like I did, and then you enter the military, one of the things that we kind of got away with was we were able to act how we wanted to act, with as long as we got the job done, as long as we brought home the grades for our parents, as long as we did the job and got the eval for our supervisors. It didn't really matter how we treated those around us, because guess what? In 1 to 3 years, you're going to be in a new state. You're going to be in a new location. You're going to have a whole new community. But when you get out, I mean, I've lived in the same state now for going on 18 years. And working around some of the same people that I've known for the last 12 or 13. But that's a hard cultural thing, to learn how to talk to people and be a part of somebody's life, not just for what you can get from them or what they can do for you, but to be a contributing member of your community or your workplace.
What you say, I still struggle with setting up roots. I be honest, since leaving in 2012, I've been to like 4 different. I left, visit North Carolina, then I went to Cincinnati, then I went to Kentucky, then I went to Virginia. Now I'm in Maryland, and that might be a part of mental illness. I don't know, but I don't mind traveling. There's a lot of undiagnosed things that folks go through, like OCD. You may not, if you don't pay attention to it, it's like, well, why do you do things that way? well, that's the way it's supposed to get done. Or, no, there's there's something else going on there. But my point being is, I think that's being able to set up roots and have that structure. I think that's really important because when you have that foundation, you know, trees how's the saying go? Trees grow stronger when they're next to a river. If you have that foundation, you and that your unit they can sustain, they can make it through a lot of different things.
Absolutely. And when you mentioned building your unit, you mentioned getting a mentor. How do you go about identifying who you would want as your mentor and then actually like getting up the courage to ask them, be like, would you be my mentor? Or is it just a relationship that you kind of fall into?
So one of my mentors was Jean-Luc Picard. So for those who like Star Trek, you have the Captain Kirk from the 60s and the Jean-Luc Picard to the late 90s. But I thought Jean-Luc Picard was an excellent leader. I liked his demeanor. He was always cool under pressure. So although he was not my formal mentor, he was a mentor for me because that's how I learned how to deal with stresses. So you may need to find you a mentor that doesn't know they're your mentor. You can follow someone closely. If you're looking for a formal mentor, go throughout your job because it's not like you just have one mentor. You may need a mentor that's going to help you develop in whatever career field you're in. You may need another mentor to help you do something else. My point being with it is that don't put it in a box, and don't limit yourself. You can have several different mentors. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're formal, but if you're going to find someone, research them and ask them. But the main thing I would say is that if you do have a mentor, you really need to go to your mentor. Always be prepared. Have your questions prepared. Don't waste their time. And if they tell you to do something, do it. And if you're not going to live by that, then don't ask them to be a mentor. And that's the bottom line. And as a mentor to other folks, if you come and ask me to mentor you, I'm going to help you. I'm not going to spank you, but I'm going to help you. But if I'm telling you that, hey, this is something you need to do that's going to grow you, it's going to make you more effective, it's going to make you more marketable, and I ask you about it, and then you don't do it, then we're going to have some challenges there. I mean, that's just me speaking, because time is very valuable, and I want you to succeed, but you have to want it more than I do.
Absolutely. And that's where the discipline that we've hopefully developed over our time in service really kicks in and puts us ahead of the curve, is that we're able to do the work that's required of us. And like you were mentioning, as you were talking about, your Jean-Luc Picard and your Captain Kirk, and thank goodness you didn't mention like Chris Pine was your mentor from the from the new days of Trek, because that's what these young people know. You got to do the work. And, there are a ton of books out there like Tribe of Mentors or Atomic Habits has been coming up a lot, where it has work that you can do to get you started, or even LinkedIn, taking some classes there. There's a lot of business mentors there teaching classes. And I know that it's a free resource for veterans their first year out of the military.
Yes, LinkedIn. Yep, you're absolutely right.
But as veterans are going into the workforce and we're trying our best to adjust to a new life and find our footing, find our purpose, and plant our roots, we're also interacting with a sector that has ideas of who veterans are and what that means in the world. What are some of the common misconceptions or misunderstandings that civilians may have about veterans transitioning into a new workforce?
Well, I think it's a culture thing. Sometimes people kind of look at you wary because it's like, hey, you're a veteran, you've had some experiences. Maybe some of those experiences may cause you to be irritable or quick to upset or challenging to work with. You've been able to get away with saying whatever you want to get the job done, but that's not going to work. So my thought process to any veteran is try and figure out whatever stereotypes there are and do your best to address them as you meet people. So then that way, in the back of your mind, in the back of their mind, they're not thinking, well, are they going to do something different? Or are they going to go off? Or are they going to say something inappropriate? Or are they going to act uncouth? and it's going to cuss up a storm. Just things like that. So I think it's, you have to change your identity. Whatever you want to become to be successful, that's what you need to do. But just make sure it's authentic. Like if this is what you want to be and that's where that's coming from you, then go ahead and do it. But if it's not you, you need to find something that kind of allows you to be that person that you are. But you can't stay the same. You're going to have to grow.
Yeah, I mean, the only way to overcome these stereotypes and misconceptions is to make sure that we don't reinforce them with those that we encounter. So are there any other tips that you would give to a veteran that would create a more supportive environment as they go into the workforce? I know the federal government for me was incredibly supportive because I went to a workforce where it was a mixture of civilian and military members. And so there was a lot of culture already ingrained about, hey, we build one another up. We don't quit on one another. If you need to take a moment, go take a moment. It was really encouraged for especially transitioning military members to take their annual leave and zero out their account every year.
Yeah, it's really important for veterans to work on themselves, figure out who they are. Because a lot of us have values that we incorporated into our lives from the military: loyalty, duty, respect, self-service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. It's the Army core values. Those are with me. They're ingrained in me. So then those are my left and right limits in regards to how I work with people and how I deal with situations. But that's who I am. So I think it's really important for you to figure out exactly who you are. One of the things I like to say is when you join the military, you're a round peg going into a really small square hole. So you have to kind of get the edges broken off to fit in there. But then once you're done and, you're still a round peg that's made itself into a square, you got to get back to your roundness. You got to get rounded. You have to figure out who you are. So it's important to, continue to do things that make you happy. Have hobbies, interact with people, because I think when you feel like that no one understands you, you'll isolate yourself, which I've done before. And then that's when you start having bad thoughts, or destructive behaviors. So there's nothing wrong with hanging out with people. If you like to play pool, play pool. If you like to go spelunking, hey, I'd never do it, but knock yourself out. But whatever it is that brings a smile to your face to help you kind of adjust to things, I recommend you do it and take the time to work on you.
Yeah, I mean, when talking about feeling misunderstood, sometimes it's tough in the workforce because there's a different language that we speak. And I mean, even when coming out of the military, we find it also a source of pride that we're a jack of all trades. We can do anything that you ask us to. Just ask us to do something so that we feel productive and we feel like we're contributing. Are there any specific strategies or resources that you found helpful when translating the military experience into language that resonates with civilian employers?
Well, action words always help. What have you done? How have you done it? How have you done? How much money have you saved? Those types of things, quantifiable actions. But even more so, there's a need for folks to lead. Regardless of how you left the military, you have some type of leadership skills in there. And that's what they need in corporations. They need people to lead. They need people to stand up and say, I'll take accountability. I'll take on this task. I'll step forward. Because folks, it's not that they don't want to, but they don't have the confidence. But I mean, military folks, in my mind, they got to remember who they are. You're just, was it less than 1% of the nation serves? Or what, less than 1% of the population serves? Can you imagine that? So that means, you're that small population of people that rose their hand or raised up their right hand, pledged allegiance, stepped on out into it with no fear. So then you have to remember that you are great. You are someone capable of moving mountains. But, sometimes we get beat down by the circumstances and we've forgotten how powerful we actually are. And I'm not just saying that just to say it. I'm saying it because I believe it. I'm saying this because it's the truth.
And we are such a powerful force as people in general. We have the capacity to love greatly, to contribute greatly, as well as hurt greatly. And I know for a lot of people, financial insecurities, job insecurities, problems at work, create other problems in life. And unfortunately, that starts to overtake us. That starts to contribute to that further isolation, further negative behavior, further negative thought patterns that have led so many veterans to die by suicide, especially in the last couple of decades, as it's been reported more and more heavily. What message of hope would you like to offer someone that's currently facing a mental health crisis?
Number one, I would say, make sure you ask for help. Ask for help. Robin Williams, when I got out of the military, I taught, and I was talking to my students about suicide. Robin Williams took his life. Now, Robin Williams had done so many great things. Do you actually think if he was in his right mind, he would have done that? And I think number one, people got to understand that someone who's even concerned is in pain. They're in a pain that they've like, listen, this is the only way I can get rid of this pain. So then I think we got to understand that someone who's thinking about these things is in pain. So number one, I tell them to get help. But number two, I tell them to love theirself. Love yourself, because veterans make so many sacrifices. They sacrifice for their families. They miss their children's birthdays. They've gone to countries and done things, time, energy, money have sacrificed. But how many sacrifices have they made for themselves? Love yourself. Give yourself a break. We're compassionate towards everyone except ourselves. What kind of sense does that make? So that's what I tell veterans. I'm not being cliche. Love yourself. You've been loving yourself a long time now, so don't stop. You're your first love. So love yourself, not in a narcissistic negative way, but just have some compassion. Handle yourself with care, because you deserve it. I mean, you've sacrificed for everyone else. So, remember who you are. So that's what I tell them.
That's great advice. And I've really appreciated our conversation. You have so much compassion for others, so much life experience in and out of service, and you continue to serve others. So where can people find you to hopefully connect and possibly even learn more from you?
They can reach me on LinkedIn, Ahmad Burse, Ahmad Burse, on Burse on LinkedIn. There's only one of me there. Or they can find me on my website at www.burseconsulting.com. My information is on the website as well as on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.